Hi, welcome to Lunia Center for Youth podcast, and I'm your host, Tariro Gurure. And today we have yet another amazing guest. Her name is Chidadiso, Francisca Mbazo, but we know her popularly in the streets as Chichi, the poetic queen. She's a poet, but also I think the reason why we're here today, she speaks to Srhr issues within young people spaces and also young people with disabilities. Welcome, Chichi.
Thank you so much, Tari. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for gracing us with your time. So, Chichi, I don't want to waste time. I want us to dive right in. You are within a network of young people that are advocating for Srhr services, and also just to be safe around HIV and AIDS. Why Srhr for you?
So firstly, I believe that every young person has that right, to know their rights when it comes to sex. They should be able to consent to sex. They should be able to access healthcare services, contraception. So I think personally, I noticed that a lot of young people aren't aware of those rights, right? They aren't accessing those services. So it was important to take it up as a young person, to connect with other like-minded young people so that we're able to bridge that gap. We're able to actually give them that information, make sure that they access those services, because at the end of the day, not accessing services, not having information has very dire effects, and it's important that we do our best and work on that.
It's important that we do our best and work on that. But when did this love for interacting with young people, to speak to a taboo thing, sometimes when you are within the circles of abantu abadala, it'd be like, I advocate for sex. Vele uthi usangakaqedisi lokuthi sexual. Sebesithi vele so encourage ontanga ukuthi bezithole besemacansini into ezinjengazonezo. When did it start?
I think, like when you find yourself in a space, I woke up one day and I was in the network, and then with time now I'm seeing what is happening in the network, and it's so interesting, So I grew to love being in that space. I grew to really internalize the fact that I advocate for Srhr rights, So I really got to internalize that, and then with time, the love just grew. And at some point, because you're in the space, so even if you're nervous, I just somehow found myself doing it because I didn't have a choice. So it's either a do or die situation. It's either you speak or you go home. So you obviously make sure.
Yeah, speak or go home. But like I asked Guti, what's the receiving end of older people within our communities, within the church space, within even just in the community, ukuthi ebeza ukuthi wena usukhuluma ngezocansi lamalungelo azocansi, are you not being discriminated upon? Ukuthi nje uzithole lawe sokuthiwa hayi, but don't be close to our kids because the misconception of Srhr.
I think corner-ish, but I wouldn't say like that much. But I think kancane abazali ngani labo sebezwisisa izinto zangikhona, because at some point maybe I thought my mom is like, typical African mother. So at some point ngangisho like, she would probably have a fit about the whole thing, like the things that you talk about. But then I've noticed that they actually appreciate, well, most of them. But obviously sila the few abangani abakuzwisisa kuyinto kwangikhona ngani bayasola, I think especially at church, because even Lati, when we're going to churches, they always say ukuthi nxa ufika lapha sungakhuluma ama-condoms, but really preach the gospel of abstinence because of the space and the circle.
Yes.
So I think khona khona ukuthi ngani siyabapromote into abazifunayo ukuthi abantu abatsha bezenze. It makes them a bit accepting of the fact that this is what we do and this is what we talk about all the time.
You've gone straight to the gospel of abstinence. Is this something that before anything else you guys preach to young people? Ukuthi bakithi, let's try and wait for the right time to engage in sexual activities.
I think we used to, right? And then like two, you start noticing it's not really every young person that does that. At a space, but then half the people in there are already indulging. So that's what we're looking at. And also now, so it depends on your space. But if you get maybe go youth center or somewhere, so church, and things like that. See figure, see like go in day one to say you can use condoms, but you can also abstain. So now it's up to you. We're not really pushing any sort of gospel, but I feel like really gospel cool mostly is a gospel to protect yourself, safe sex, correct,
and satisfying.
Yes.
Yeah. Let's do that. Let's redo that. Safe.
Satisfying sex. Then we're saying correct and consistent use of condoms.
Correct and consistent use of condoms.
We're also saying that we're talking about contraceptives as well. For extra protection, if you're using condoms, also make sure that you're using contraceptives. And then the whole methods, our PrEP also that come into play. But then this is all that we're talking about. And then now we sort of like move into say, you haven't abstained, because we always talk about you should delay your sexual debut for good reasons, right?
Yes.
So if you are not indulging already, it's always important for you to delay your sexual debut. It will save you from a lot of things. So when I indulge, you no, you can keep on abstaining. It's good for you. But if you're already doing it, because most young people are already doing it, so it's always important to say, let's protect so that CT, no STIs, HIV, unwanted teen pregnancies and things like that.
Okay, Chichi, I want to talk about the age of consent in Zimbabwe. There's a lot of confusion, and we keep on going back to Parliament with the law. Certify and when is it comfortable for someone to consent to say, okay,
oh well. I feel like for me also it's really been an issue that I've been thinking about a lot, and looking at things, because we've got children as young as 14 who actually indulge in sex, and then we talk about 18. What about the kids who are already indulging, who are already doing it, right? We say, okay, 16. Then there was the whole issue about also the marriage. If you wanna get married, you're supposed to be 18 and above. Consenting to sex is 16. So there's a lot.
There's a lot of confusion around this policy, and a lot of confusion around the age. Even when it was when we had consultations, abantu they came, basically 12 years as yens in Janenjani. But I'm also hearing that the law has been amended now. The age of consent is now 18. Your thoughts around that?
I feel like it's okay, because at some point there was a conversation about why is marriage at 18 and consenting at 16, right? Then they had to put it all together. But then there's also the Public Health Act about how if you're a young person, if you're 16 years and below, you need a guardian to go and access Srh services at institutions, right? But then if you're 16 years and above, you can go on your own. But then for you to consent to sex, you need to be 18. So I don't know.
There's a whole lot of confusion around it. But I also think Uguti, now it's only that it's only being captured on phones. But even our generation, the generations before, they're on that they were doing.
True.
And I really love the fact that your network is a whole lot of young people, and while you're young people, my question to you is, for young people also with disabilities, do you see? I think you can also concur to this. There's a whole lot of infections, HIV infections around young people with disabilities. There's a whole lot of I don't know how to put it. Information and cases amanye rape cases. So within your advocacy, what are you guys doing in your network?
So I think, as you say, we're a diverse group of young people. So the nice thing about the network is we have representation from all groups of young people. So young people living with HIV, young people in key populations, most importantly, as you said, young people with disabilities, right? And then when we look at our work is more of advocacy, information dissemination. So what we do mostly is we talk to the stakeholders. The network does get invited to these very high-level meetings. We do go to public hearings and things like that. So our work mostly has been advocacy. Like some time back when we had the hearing for the disability bill, we had people from the network who were actually going there. We had a lot of issues that they were talking about. Also, you know. So this is some of the work that we do around that. And then also, I remember Gule's where we had a meeting with the stakeholders. So now the issue was about how we've got information that is not available in disability-friendly formats. So it was the conversation about how you've got these flyers, you've got these posters, but the posters are not really getting to the disability community because at the end of the day, maybe they're not even they're not even maybe in
Braille.
In Braille. We don't have them in block letters for those who are short-sighted. You know, we don't have them maybe even in video formats for the ones who use sign language and things like that. So from the conversation, I remember there was Zimbabwe Family Planning Council, and at some point they actually committed to saying that we're going to have our information available in Braille. And I remember it was distributed to a number of organizations in Bulawayo that actually deal with the disability issues. So that was one thing that we've tried to do as the network. But I think it's really more of an ongoing conversation at the end of the day. And also currently we're fighting to get into some spaces so that we can influence those kind of decisions and make sure that we put, you know, the whole issue, yet disability and especially access to information forward. I think it's going well, but then we're trying.
I know it's a long shot and all that, but as long as we're bulldozing into opportunities and spaces, I think eventually we're going to get there. Today is International Menstrual Hygiene Day, and this is something that we are sort of celebrating for people that are comfortable having this conversation. But there's a lot of non-information within this menstrual hygiene, and there are people that are still in period poverty. There are people that skip their classes because they cannot afford sanitary wares and all that. Is this something that you would advocate for in the near future, to say bageti even the government ukuthi ayingenele in sanitary, where we've heard stories of people wearing ama cow dungs for you know, I know there's reusable pads, but also is it something that you guys can advocate ukuthi government ingenele so that we get our sanitary ways are very affordable, if not cost to nothing, subsidized, prices?
Yes, actually, Vele, it's a very important day, I must say. And you've talked about all of these issues. So we were planning, it's actually currently in process. So unfortunately, we couldn't do it today, but as the network, Bulawayo, we have a dialogue. We can call it an indaba, to say. So where we're planning to invite the government officials, those in the health portfolio committee, those people who have those powers to actually influence this kind of things, right? And young people as well in the mix, so that we can get there, have a dialogue, talk about the issues, and then maybe even make recommendations to say we need this as young people, we need that, because at the end of the day it's a very pressing issue, I must say. And you know, we're looking at we can have people who can't afford pets, right? And when you have pets, we have people who have very severe menstrual cramps. So instead, on top of having pets, you need to have medication, you know? And it's not everyone who can afford that at the end of the day. People end up missing school. I even know someone couldn't even work during their menses because it was that bad. So it's very important, and we're currently working on it, so I hope soon we'll be updating on how it will go, but it's probably either be this week or next week. But it's a conversation that's currently in process.
But I can't let you go, Chichi, and not talk about your creative side. If someone is following you on social media, Chichi is that one. Chichi is posting. Chichi is doing this. Are you as an influential person in the circles of Matebeleland? What would you do, Wena? What would you change in terms of your influence in access to sexual reproductive health and rights, and also maybe to just preach the gospel of accessibility within young people, of course, and also maybe even older people. There are people that are older than us but cannot access information. So influence yako uyisebenzisa kanjani? Positivity. Positive, of course. Positivity, yeah.
I think for me, the biggest thing from my experience, especially with Srh, when you've been here and you're noticing, one very important thing is how we don't have these conversations with our parents. And the downside of that is, and most of the times our friends don't even know themselves. So we're all
experimenting in the process.
We're feeding each other poison at the end of the day. So I think one thing that I've really talked about was the issue of us having these honest conversations with our parents. Let's just encourage our parents to say, can we have these conversations? To them, maybe it might seem a bit uncomfortable, but I think it's very necessary, and it really saves us from a lot. And then now, speaking to access, I think let me slightly go back to conversations. Also, as young people, it's important to have these conversations, because at some point, the young people feel some sort of way about talking about these things, but then there's a things that are happening, things in our community. So I also encourage young people to speak about it, because it's very, very important. I think Katesi, when I meet people, they sort of can't separate me from Chichi from Facebook. They'll at some point they'll always talk about, the network. What do you guys do? If there are people who even need HIV test kits, they'll come to me. They don't really understand, but I love and appreciate how they know that it's related to SRH, it's related to their health, it's related to their safety as well. And then also we had the whole issue about how we don't have youth-friendly service providers at the end of the day, and I feel like it might have been true to an extent, but then with time, things are really getting better. And now the problem is, as young people, are the ones with the attitude, and we're actually afraid to go there.
Yes, because we're afraid they might have an attitude.
So I think also currently working on making sure we demystify that as well, because I noticed that we're having a lot of institutions that are actually welcoming. Yeah. So I think that's another conversation that I'll be pushing in a few weeks.
Wow, yeah? I hope that we can track that conversation and also track its progress. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for just taking your time to be with us and talk about your work and what you do. But above all, the gospel of youth-friendly sexual reproductive health and rights. And also that we be comfortable in having these conversations amongst ourselves, and also as older people and younger people. So I guess we are the generation that are going to be talking to our kids about openly and comfortable about why they need to be safe, and why they need to know and have information regarding to sexual reproductive health rights. So until next time, everyone, I hope that you enjoyed this episode, and you can catch us on the next episode. So our Twitter, Facebook handles, YouTube handles will be right down there on the screen, so that you follow us, you don't miss another episode. Until next time, goodbye for now. Thank you.